And this one, I think I would have had a better idea of what we were getting ourselves into if I would have looked into who the director was ahead of time. Because he wrote Annabelle Creation, he directed Annabelle Comes Home. That was the first time he directed anything. And he co-wrote it chapters 1 and 2. So
Oh,
he's got,
okay.
he's got some Stephen King cred behind him. But watching this movie, it's like this feels like a guy that would be involved in the Conjuring universe right off the bat. You know what I mean? It's a little bit
Yeah.
cheaper scares. It's a little bit dumbed down. And it seems like in some ways it's aimed at adults, but in other ways it's aimed right at teens. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Is that what you felt? But we were talking ahead
Yo.
of time. I've read the book. It's not one of my favorite books. I'm always surprised when I looked and I see it like towards the top of a lot of people's like favorite Stephen King adaptation or books. But
Feelings.
I read this in high school and I was like, oh, it was solid. And then I read it like a handful of years ago and I enjoyed it, but it's never been one of my favorites. And then we were saying ahead of time, I've never seen the Toby Hooper 1979 two-part miniseries, which a lot of people talk about, but it's 3 hours long. So I've never checked it out. And there's a 2004. I'm not sure whether this was a miniseries or a movie. I'm not quite sure, but I've never seen that either. And I've never even heard of it until I looked in to do the research for this. And the other thing I was going to say, I never really remember the story. It's not like, and I
Right.
read it like 5, 6 years ago, but it's not something that really stands out to me. And that, like, as I'm going in, I'm picking it apart, like, oh, they didn't do this and they didn't do that. Like, I just don't remember it that well. So it didn't hamper my experience in the least bit. But I was a little bit disappointed. I was kind of a lot disappointed originally. I watched it again. I'm like, okay, Stephen King movies are kind of they should be aimed at teens. That's when I fell in love with them. So it's not like the
Yeah.
worst thing, but it was a little cheap. The characters were like non-existent in it, but it's fun. It's fun and it's pretty watchable for a 2 hour kind of bad movie, in my
Yeah.
opinion. But what did
Yeah.
you think? Dude?
You summed it up. My feelings are pretty on point. I felt like there may have been some studio tampering, where you can
Yeah.
obviously, like when you told me this dude's background was like the Annabelle franchise, I can kind of like the scares in here are very not all of them, but some
Mhm.
of them are cheap. They're very commercial. You can kind of see it coming. Like you said, the characters are pretty much non-existent. Like there was people in good roles, like good actors. I want like the priest, for what I
Mhm.
saw, he was fine, but it's like he didn't have shit to do.
Yeah.
Um,
Everybody across the board.
yeah,
All the characters, and this was originally it was that they made a 3 hour version of this and they cut it
wow,
down and you can feel that you're missing a whole hour of it. It seems like they took all the character development out of it. And then the other thing worth mentioning is this was supposed to come out in like 2023, 2024.
okay,
It was
I think
supposed to be a theatrical, yeah, it was supposed to be a September 2022 release. Then it got pushed back to 2023. And then they released Evil Dead Rise in its slot. And then finally this got pushed to Max. So you know what I mean? I kind of had a feeling it was like it's probably not going to be the greatest. Quite a
yeah,
while ago, I was
they
feeling that.
made a quick choice with I would have gone with Evil Dead Rise as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
100%.
I don't know, man. Like it's what it's not bad. I mean,
Yeah,
it's bad, but it's not that bad. Like I think it's a good commercial movie. Like people who aren't like people who just kind of like to casually check out horror movies. I think it's gonna hit for them.
hmm
But we're like, I, I feel like it's a commercial horror cash in almost.
yeah.
Like
Oh yeah.
I can see the background of him writing it because, like you said, at certain points it seems like it's aimed at adults, but then it kind of switches to like teenage kid mode with the
hmm
whole and the one to like he's the one that's really pieced together. I mean, other people have pieced it together, but the kid's subplot of him reading comic books and knowing how to take down the vampire and stuff, it felt very much, like it's
Yeah, it seemed like it was
the book.
directed like the adult stuff was directed by adults, and the kid stuff was like directed by kids, or
Yeah,
like aimed way more at kids. So it was a weird tonal shift. There's moments in the movie, like when the chick gets shot with the shotgun, and some of the more like violent stuff, that it's like,
yeah,
whoa, I didn't
yo,
expect
it's
that to be in
savage.
this movie because it feels so much at it, for kids.
I also thought like we were gonna. I mean, maybe that's because of my own expectations. I thought we were gonna get something similar to like 30 Days of Night, where it's like a
hmm
handful of people are fighting a town full of town full of vampires or some shit like that.
Mhm.
And it really never comes to that, you know? Like to be honest, like the first hour was tolerable. It was good to me, you know, and then
Yeah,
it
I thought the first, especially on a rewatch with my wife, 'cause
mm,
she, you know what I mean, she's less critical than I am.
right,
She got good taste, but she's less judgy. But she
right.
was into it and I was into it. For the rewatch for the first 45 minutes, I'm like, "Oh, I was smoking that shit, man. This is actually pretty entertaining." And then I'm like, "Oh, no, no. No, no, no. I mean, I was smoking the shit, but it's it falls
No,
apart."
yeah, no, you were justified. In it's cool. The first hour is cool. It's got a good pace. You know, they're setting up cool plot points and scares, but then it just kind of like switches gears after a certain point. And now that you say that they shot like a 3 hour version, you
Mhm.
shit because it seems like they're just kind of rushing towards the end after a certain point.
Yeah.
You know, man, I'm not even trying to like the what really got me where it was just kind of it was I mean I guess it's towards the end but I'm big on endings was the whole vampire and the drive-in shit, you know, and that was like the big finale, you know, not
Mhm.
like savage people getting bloody vampires almost it's like these guys were running from trunks opening and the
Yeah.
shack.
Yeah. Which it had some moments, but it wasn't creepy because of that
Right,
setting. That's the
right.
one thing, and again, I have a hard time remembering what happens in the book, and maybe that's how it goes down in the book, but I feel like they go to the house, and that's where it goes down, in that gothic, creepy setting. Anybody
Hmm.
out there that's seen it more recently or remembers the other adaptations, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if the drive-in bit is in the movie like that. Dude, the other thing that you had me thinking of, like you said, it does exactly that, where it is a handful of people against this town of vampires, but they don't
Hmm.
sell it. It never
Right.
feels
Yeah.
like that. I mean, there's moments where you're like, "Oh, I guess that's what it is," because it's like, well, this came before it, but it's like 30 Days of Night, or it's
Hmm.
like a zombie movie, but confined to a town, where you've got
Yep.
like a virus and infection spreading, and it's taking over the whole
Suspicion
town.
spreading. Yeah. And you know, even like them banding together, it was like a whole bunch of like Scooby Gang
Mhm.
moments where it's just like, we think it's vampires. You don't think it's vampires? I don't know. It's just they just kind of I don't know. That you could tell that this movie was edited to rush to the end. Like I wish they would. This is an example of where it's like you've already kind of omitted it from theatrical release. You're just gonna kind of put it on streaming. So let it run its 3 hour. What's the point in cutting it? You know?
Exactly. Fuck, make a
I don't.
movie. I mean, obviously, this should have been a miniseries. You know what
Yes.
I mean?
Yeah.
That's the way to do, or you're right, just make a 3-hour movie, or just, release it in 2 parts. Call it a movie and release it in 2 parts or something like that, a week apart or a couple weeks apart, and it woulda hyped people up. They
Yep.
could have taken their time, and people would have been pretty excited about it. I'm seeing a lot of buzz about it. And that's why
Yeah. It.
that's why I say I'm not mad at it them aiming it towards kids. I don't think it's great, but, like, I've just seen posts in horror groups like, "Hey, Salem's Lot, what'd you think of it?" And there are a lot of people like, "I loved it."
They're loving
So
it.
it's like
Yeah.
the people that loved Annabelle and that love the Conjuring movies are probably gonna like this. If Black Phone
Yeah.
is your favorite movie of 2022 or whenever it came out, I don't know why we always use that as an example, but the younger audience, there's gonna be a lot of people that this is like their favorite vampire movie. It's scary as hell.
Yeah. And you know, I was gonna say, let me because I've become such an aficionado. It probably sounds like I'm ragging on this movie. There. It's not like you're not enjoying this movie. It was just like towards the end, I was a little let down, and certain
Mhm.
parts probably would have amped up. You know, like because they had a cool looking Nosferatu type of vampire dude. You know, like I would have liked to see more of that. Like the dude. You know, the dude when he was doing the dude from Unbreakable, the kid from Unbreakable, the son he grew up, and now he was the burial dude. You know,
I didn't know that was him. Okay.
yep. That those were like cool scenes. You know, I wish we would have had more of that where vampires kind of fucking with people before they
Yeah.
kind of snatched them. You know,
Yeah.
like
Well, my problem with that was it was like 3 in a row. Like they were kind of cool. All these little scares, the kid in
mm,
bed grabbing the blood and eating it, but we didn't know who he was. We
right,
barely knew who he was. That was probably the biggest disappointment to me when we've got the scene where the one friend is coming to his buddy's window and he's let me in. That's like the iconic scene from
mm,
the original. And that's the thing that I remember and that I see like images of. But you didn't barely know who those kids were, and that could have been sold so much harder. You know what I mean? If we really felt their friendship, we would have been like, "Oh my god!" Like, yeah, it would have been so much sadder.
And there were certain things like they just kind of I felt like they introduced certain things that they could have focused on a little bit more. Like you said, the kids' friendship. They introduced these kids at the beginning. The main kid, he's not even like a focus point when they first introduce him. It's the
Yeah.
two kids, and I'm
Yep.
thinking that the movie's going to be from they're going to be a gang of friends or some shit like that. They get taken out so early, but it's like, what was the point of focusing on them? Or it was
Exactly.
that really bothered me. Maybe this is was cut on the editing floor. Was the whole mom bit towards the end? The mom with the shotgun. Um, Something like that should have been sprinkled in early on in the movie, like how
Yeah.
overprotective her mom is. Like that shit literally came out of nowhere. I
Yeah.
don't have mentioned it in conversation, but that bit should have been like pieces introduced, like sprinkled throughout the film leading up to that. So when you find like, oh shit, of course it would be the mom fucking.
Mhm.
But when that happened, it really didn't hit because it's the focus I don't know, it had a lot going on in this movie. It seemed like that they couldn't really
Right.
narrow down with their
That's the
editing.
problem. I mean, it's just like, it's a Stephen King book. It's a sprawling story. It's a
Right.
fucking, what is this? It's a 620 some page book. And all these characters that are in here obviously get way more developed in the book, obviously.
Right.
But that's the thing. There's just too many of them. There's too many of them to like the girl, the main love interest, and the love story. Like I was into that at the beginning. I'm like, you know what I mean? It wasn't great. It was a little cheesy, a little corny, but I was there for it. I was
Yeah.
buying it. And if you would have told me in the first like 25 minutes, spoiler alert, she's going to become a vampire and die later in the movie, I'm like, oh shit. But it's almost like they didn't want any of these moments to be too impactful and upset the
Because
kids. You know
right.
what I mean? Like that's what kind of sucks about it. They cheapened all this stuff and didn't really go for it. But at the same time, like here in my mind, what I want this movie to be is kind of like what Robert or Roger Eggers, Robert Eggers,
Robert, yeah, yeah, yeah,
what he's
Robert.
gonna do with Nosferatu, probably. But
Yes.
it's like I don't again, like, does that fit Stephen King? I mean, I guess it does. There's really serious adaptations of
Yeah,
his work, but
yeah.
there's a lot of like fun, campy, cheesy shit in his
For
catalog
sure,
too. And
for
this
sure.
fits into that like
Man,
all
oh,
day.
no, yeah, and maybe it's because I'm a big fan of these type of movies, like small town set, like The Mist, 30 Days a
Mhm.
Night, 20 Days Later, like, well, I guess 20 Days Later is not really in there, but it's about like, you know, a small group of people against crazy odds, essentially, or like the
Mhm.
movies, and like, so I thought that's what this is what this movie is what that theme is, but it's just like we've just said, it's dumbed down, it's watered down,
Mhm.
it's commercialized. They don't
It's
really give you
marvelized in a way too,
yes,
right? Like, when
yes,
she throws the steak the first time I
right.
watched it, I was like, "This is the stupidest fucking thing ever." The second time I was ready for it, I'm like, "Okay." Like, someone's gonna be like, "That's the best part of the movie."
There
"Here,
there was a
catch," and
part
he gets taken up. The other bit is when the kid gets yanked up, which is that was kinda cool. You know what I'm talking
which
about? He's just looking around, and then you see him
oh, he
like
grabs him, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's the kid from The Boys, the Homelander's son. Shout out,
Okay. See, I'm not that I've only seen, like, the first season. What up, E, my brother? Afternoon to you. Big rockin' Robbie. Papa Boom in the house. What up, brother?
I like that. But one of my favorite bits in the movie, but it's also the worst, is when the mom is in the morgue. Like they
Mhm.
very
I love it.
cheesy.
That's a great way to describe it. It's my favorite and the worst.
Does. And then they're like when they're putting together like a MacGyver cross and shit and starts to light up. I was like, that's so corny. But on my second watch, I was like, I can kind of dig that, bro. Like, I
Yeah.
like how it lights up and shit, and it
It
gave it some flair. I don't know. I really wish there's a good movie here. I feel
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
just the editing, they rushed to the end.
The,
And
uh, the glowing cross, if I remember, that is in the book. That's a thing that's less cheesy in the book, but it looks they could have done a better
they
job with it. It could have looked like, I don't know, more magical instead of just a lit up cross. There was something kinda
or
lame.
like they could have had a scene with like because all we get from the priest is he wakes up in the fucking jail cell, and then they kind of talk to him about Scooby Gang shit, and then he's in
Mhm.
the throes of the vampire stuff. Like you could have had a scene with what's his son's name? The Bill Pullman's son.
Christian
Um,
Pullman.
oh, Christian, you could have had him fucking going to he was going around town trying to interview people. You could have had a scene of him like talking to the priest
Totally.
about something, and he could have mentioned I don't know, just small little things like that would have gone a long way.
He's
Uh,
actually the person, surprisingly, and I don't want to go too deep into this because this is nerdy Stephen King book stuff that a lot of people won't care about. But for people out there that are fans of the Dark Tower series, you know, Father Callahan, he does not die in this fucking book. He shows up in Stephen King's big, sprawling 7-part like epic fantasy
No
story.
shit.
He shows up in like book 5, gets sucked out of our world and ends up in this other world, and he's part of this whole crazy story that is really not. I mean, don't get me wrong, they don't have to play into that in this movie. You know, I'm not saying that, but they should know that like he's a pretty important character that a lot of big King fans are going to be curious to see what they do with him.
Now we probably won't ever see anything like that. But how dope would that? Because it's kind of like some Walking Dead shit where one character pops up from this show and appears in the
Yeah,
next. Maybe some MCU shit, but I would love to see like some. Have they ever done that with Stephen King properties? Like alluded that some certain movies and shows take place within the
I
same.
just like that Castle Rock show where they,
Okay,
you know what I mean? He's kind of got a universe built there. I'm trying to think if there's other official ones. The Dark Tower series is the one that
that
ties
connect
every like in
everything.
the Dark Tower series, you end up finding out that like Stephen King becomes a character for a minute in that series. Like they go to his house and he's like, "What the fuck?" All of his characters are showing
Like
up.
it's
It's
a meta
crazy.
thing. He's
Yeah.
they. He's the, oh shit.
They
Okay.
tie it all together. Robbie's saying this is one of his favorites. Hopefully, this one is different for me. Talking about the adaptations, it's not.
So
It's
I
not.
was Robbie, what is your view on the other adaptations? Have you seen all the like the previous ones?
From what I remember him talking about it. I want to say him and Dylan covered it on DHS, and
Okay.
all I remember Robbie saying about it is that it's too fucking long and it's slow. So I mean, I'm sure a lot of people love it, but it's not. You know what I mean? It's not one that you're hearing about all the time. But it does. It definitely does have its fans.
This one is probably like the polar opposite where it's too they don't settle enough, there's certain
Hmm.
moments here and they develop certain things. They kind of just it's a good crowd pleaser. I'll say that, like I
Right.
think for like a it's weird because I think my second time watch was more enjoyable, but I would say for the average person, I think that first time watch, I'm like, oh, that was fun. This is a cool vampire
Yeah.
movie.
Yes. The
It's
person that's not being overly critical and knows they're gonna go talk about this and break it down, just enjoying themselves like a regular human being in October, then yeah, exactly. Because that's another thing I said to my wife. Like it's got those good fall vibes. It's a good
Mhm.
gothic October film to be coming out right now. And it
Great.
has its moments.
And even certain, like, I don't know, maybe it's a testament to actors just being too good in their roles. Like the fucking vampire's henchman or whatever. He kind of reminded me of Ian McGregor a little bit.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
he was interesting, but they don't really do anything with him.
Right.
He gets taken out super easily, bro. Like when he got smacked by the kid, I was thinking like he got knocked unconscious and some shit like that. We'll show him like that was it.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
um.
Yeah, I mean, he's a way bigger part of the book. Like I
See,
don't remember. I think on the book, I could totally be wrong. I feel like the main vampire almost doesn't show up till the end. I might be totally wrong, but I feel like it's this big build up to him. But I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. Robbie's saying, yeah, we covered the Hooper mini series on DHS. Too slow and boring. The one with Rob Lowe. Ugh.
2004, right?
Yeah, it's got to be the 2004 one. Yeah, Robbie's saying he's echoing. Yeah, I love the Dark Tower. Dark Tower is like the coolest fucking thing ever.
I
That
gotta go.
would make a great series. I think Amazon Prime, they've been talking about making a series out of this forever, and they did make the one movie, and the movie sucks ass. It's got
Don't
Idris Elba. Is that his name?
my only experience with Dark Tower, they had did like a series in like 2007, like Peter David and
Hmm.
that that I know they did stuff after that, but like that was my introduction. And it was cool, but it seemed kind of there was a lot going on at the time for me
Yeah,
to comprehend, so I kind of never dove back into it. But it's
totally, man. It's a whole world.
like wizardry and cowboys and shit like that.
I don't know. If this is the case, god damn it, I think you're right.
That would be
Isn't
perfect.
Mike Flanagan doing the Dark Tower now? That would be fucking great. Like
Yeah,
Amazon Prime, everything. I wanted to say it was Prime, but shit, he does so much work with Netflix that maybe it would be Netflix. But I don't know. Mike Flanagan, which we'll be talking about him in a little bit because he wrote one of the shorts and his wife does one of the shorts on VHS Beyond. So
surprise.
Yeah, let's actually get into that in just a moment. But let's go ahead
All right.
and rate this bad boy out of 5. You guys in the chat, if you've seen the brand new Salem's Lot, let me get your score out of 5. What are you giving it, Link?
Man, hard not to be critical. This is an enjoyable movie. It's fun if you could just turn your brain off and you just want some fun horror vampire shit in the background. I think this does the job.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're looking for a little bit more, it's this is a movie that if you're looking for them, you're gonna see the oh nice. You're
Yeah.
going to see the plot holes. They're pretty glaring, but it's still fun. It's got some cool moments. I was gonna say great characters, but it's good actors in the roles. I wish I
Yeah.
could them. I'll give this one a solid 3.25.
Nice.
Um,
Nice. So what let me ask you this too. The other vampire movie that I'm thinking of that came out this year was Abigail. They're kind of similar. Where
yes.
just they're entertaining, shut your brain off, and you're gonna like it. And certain people are gonna fucking love it. Because a
Yep.
lot of people are like, "Oh, what do you mean, Abigail? This is a great year." Somebody actually said that to me online. I was in some post, people are talking about it's been a bit of an off year. People are like, "What do you mean? Abigail came out this year?" I was like, "Okay." Like, oh, that changes everything. It's been a great year. But what did you like better?
I personally liked Abigail better. I think it was it has been the idea's been done before, but I probably like the cast a little. Like there's a lot of like the what's his face that we were just talking
Dan
about him.
Stevens, yeah.
Dan Stevens. I think he's a gem. Even there's another guy in there. He's in a lot of shit, but he's never like a lead role. He was the muscle dude. You know what I'm talking about? He played
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Virgins. Shit. He's been in a lot of stuff, but I think he's a good actor. I don't know. I think that what's his face from Breaking Bad with the fucking vampire, the henchman.
Oh yeah,
He's
yeah, yeah, yeah. Giancarlo
Giancarlo.
Esposito.
Yes. I just love those actors a little bit more than the cast in
Yeah,
this movie. Uh, I don't know. I think it was a little bit more original. They kind of nailed what they were going for a little bit more with Abigail as opposed. That one didn't seem so held back. Where this one
yeah, totally.
seems
You
like
could.
there's so
This
much
one
more.
has the more glaring flaws in it, but both still cheap fun.
Yes.
But the
Yep.
other one is a little more
Yeah.
transgressive, shall I say? A little bit more not maybe not transgressive, but a little bit more gory, and it leads into the horror a little bit more. Although this has some creepy, like
Yeah.
that really changes tone halfway through. Like it feels pretty creepy. Like the
Yes.
moment when the kids get kidnapped, like when they're walking through the woods and the Barlow comes up and takes one of the kids, like that shit, that was a really,
That
really good scene.
shot, like that's another thing that fucked me up because I was like, when he gets taken out, I'm like, how does he creep through the woods and snatch a kid out of nowhere with while the other kid not knowing where the hell they went, but he gets
Yeah.
taken out, you know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well shot. I'll give it that. Like it looks great. Like the cinematography is pretty on point. I like the color palette they used throughout. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
fall vibes, like you were saying. It's just the editing, bro. That's one of the biggest downfalls of this movie.
yeah, definitely. I like Chill saying right here, Abigail started out strong, just like this one did for me, but then
Yeah.
went the traditional route at the end, but still a lot of potential. Robbie Dark Tower series ties every King story together. And don't sleep on
Oh,
fucking Talisman, which he wrote with Peter Straub. Hell yeah, Robbie. That's one of my absolute favorites. Which another one, it ties it like the Dark Tower series and part of like Stephen King's universe is all about these other worlds. And in
okay.
In that one that he did, Talisman, like this kid takes a sip of some juice and he ends up in some of these worlds that the Dark Tower series takes place in. So fucking cool. But they don't
Okay.
like really make a point of tying these things together in the book. You kind of
You
just
know what, Dr.
put
Sleep?
these things together on your own. But what were you saying?
Did you like Dr. Sleep?
Yeah, fucking Robbie smokes crack. Robbie liked it too. I don't fucking Robbie don't remember. He didn't like it that much, and it's not The Shining. But I want to say Robbie
Yeah,
gave it like a 3.5. I
that's
loved
out.
it when I first saw it. I was blown away because I was like, "Holy shit!" Because you're expecting it to suck ass.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
on a rewatch, I'm like, okay, it's not that great. But I think I gave it like a 4 at the time. A pretty respectable score. I like it a lot. Did you see it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you said, it's not The Shining. That's true. But like, I didn't think this is something that can work at the time, or
Mhm.
probably it should work. But it was very, I was like, oh, it was a pleasing viewing experience.
Right,
So I
right.
a lot of credit because once again, maybe expectations. I was expecting it to suck so much ass, that when it came
A-
out, it was like a decent movie. I was like, hell yeah, this is really good, you
and
know?
the direction was fire. All the stuff with like I don't know, there was a lot of like crazy psychic mind shit going on, and the
Yeah.
way they put that on film was fucking. I thought it was badass. I never rated this one. I'm gonna give it. I think I gave Abigail a 2.5. I'm gonna give this one a 2.5 as well, just because it could have been so much better. But it's entertaining. But it's it's middle of the road for me.
No, absolutely. I was being
I think
generous.
you might have given Abigail a 3.25 as well, which you gave this one. So
They're on the same. They're
yeah,
they're in the same vein, you know. Like they're fun movies, but there's so many. You're gonna there if you really think about it, both movies you're gonna be like, why the fuck would they do that? Or like
right,
there's
right, exactly.
lots that don't make sense, tropes that are not fun. Um, but I would say that both of these movies are worth seeing. You know,
Yeah,
they're
yeah. Robbie's saying I'm sipping the juice. Of course I am. I got to, you know what I mean? We all got to. But all right, 2.5 for me, a 3.25 from The Missing Link. And I don't know if any of you guys in the chat have seen it. If you have seen it, slap your scores down below and let us move on to another one, which I'm going to say right now, I enjoyed this quite a bit better, man.